The holding room's fluorescent lights hummed with that particular frequency that made time feel suspended. Maya had been sitting for 40 minutes when the door opened again. Not Brennan this time. 2 MPs entered. The same staff sergeant from earlier and a younger corporal whose name tape read Morrison. "Ma'am, we're moving you to a more secure location while the investigation continues," the staff sergeant said. His tone carried apology his words couldn't. "Standard procedure for federal charges." Maya stood and followed them down the corridor. The secure location turned out to be a proper detention cell, small but clean, with a cot bolted to the wall and a stainless steel combination toilet and sink. The door was solid metal with a narrow observation window. Morrison shifted uncomfortably as the staff sergeant processed the transfer paperwork. "This feels wrong, Sarge. She's not acting like someone who got caught." The staff sergeant's pen kept moving. "Not our call, Morrison. We follow orders." They left Maya alone in the cell. She sat on the cot and let herself remember things she normally kept locked away. The smell of Hellman Province dust. The weight of body armor in 100-degree heat. The crackle of radio traffic and the specific pitch of incoming fire. The faces of men who treated her like one of them because she'd earned it through every mission, every translation, every piece of intelligence that kept them alive. 3 corridors away, Lieutenant Chun couldn't let it go. She pulled up the evidence log on her terminal and found a tactical knife serial number. The database search took 18 seconds. The result made her stomach tighten. The knife had been issued to intelligence support activity personnel in 2010. Not regular SEAL issue. ISA. She stared at the acronym, then opened a new search window. Intelligence support activity was a classified unit. The public information was minimal, carefully scrubbed, but the basic function was clear. ISA operatives worked alongside Special Operations Forces, providing intelligence support in denied areas. Chin pulled out her personal phone and texted her brother. "Quick question. When you were with Team 5, were there female intelligence operators embedded with the teams?" The response came 6 minutes later. "Yeah, a few. ISA mostly. They wore our insignia as cover." "What?" Chin's hands went cold. She typed back, "Just curious. Thanks." She stared at the evidence log again, then at the detention transfer form. Brennan had already submitted his initial report to the base legal office. The wheels were turning. But if Maya Torres actually was ISA, if she'd actually served with SEAL Team 3, then Brennan had just arrested a decorated operative for doing exactly what she'd been authorized to do. Chun stood and walked to the evidence room. Brennan was gone, but the items remained in their sealed bags in the secure locker. She couldn't touch them without authorization, but she could photograph the log entries. She took 3 pictures with her phone, making sure the serial numbers were clearly visible. Then she did something that would either end her career or save it. She called the Joint Special Operations Command Liaison Office and requested a priority review of a security incident involving potential classified personnel. The duty officer who answered sounded bored until Chun mentioned ISA and SEAL Team 3. Then his tone sharpened. "Give me the name." "Torres Maya. Service dates 2009 to 2017. Standby." Chun waited, her heart hammering against her ribs. Around her, the security office continued its normal rhythm. Personnel processed in and out. Radios crackled with routine traffic. Nobody knew she'd just gone over her commanding officer's head to request intervention from the most secretive command structure in the military. The duty officer came back on a line. "Do not proceed with any charges. Do not transfer the individual to civilian authorities. Secure her location and wait for contact from JSOC personnel." "Am I clear, Lieutenant?" "Crystal clear," Chun said, but her voice shook. "This incident is now under JSOC investigation. Your commanding officer will be notified through proper channels." The line went dead. Chun sat down hard in her desk chair. Through the window, she could see the detention block where Maya waited. What had Brennan just stepped into? In his office, Brennan completed the stolen valor report with satisfaction. The evidence was solid. The photographs were clear. The case was textbook. He'd protected the integrity of the SEAL community, and that mattered more than the woman's calm denials. Frauds always maintain their stories until confronted with irrefutable proof. He filed the report electronically and CC'd the base commander, the legal office, and the public affairs section. Stolen valor cases sometimes attracted media attention. Better to get ahead of it. His phone rang. The base commander's aide. Captain Brennan, the commander needs to see you immediately. Brennan frowned. That was fast. Usually legal review took at least a day. On my way. The base commander's office occupied prime real estate with a view of the training grounds. Commander Price was a former SEAL himself, 28 years of service, 3 combat deployments. He stood behind his desk, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Captain, do you know what JSOC is? Brennan nodded. Joint Special Operations Command. They coordinate special mission units. Price's jaw worked like he was chewing something bitter. I just got a call from a JSOC colonel. Actually, he called my boss who called me. They want to know why we've detained one of their personnel. Brennan's confidence wavered for the first time. Sir, the woman I arrested isn't JSOC personnel. She's a fraud wearing unauthorized insignia. Her name is Maya Torres. She was an intelligence support activity operative embedded with SEAL Team 3 from 2010 to 2014. She participated in 47 combat missions. She was awarded the Silver Star for actions in Helmand Province in 2012. Price's voice dropped to something dangerous. That operation she mentioned, the one you thought was a lie, she directed medical evacuation under fire while translating intercepted Taliban communications. 4 team members came home alive because of her. The floor seemed to tilt under Brennan's feet. But women weren't in the teams during that period. She wasn't in the teams, Price said. She was ISA, intelligence support. They embedded with special operations units. They wore SEAL insignia as operational cover. It's still partially classified, which is why her service record is redacted. Brennan's mouth went dry. The challenge coin, the tactical knife, the journal with water stains. All of it real. All of it earned. I didn't know. You didn't check, Price said. You made an assumption and ran with it. Now we have a JSOC colonel flying here personally to clean up your mess. Brennan felt something cold settle in his chest. I was trying to protect the community. Price's expression softened slightly. I know what you thought you were doing. But this woman earned every piece of insignia she wears. She bled for it, and you treated her like a criminal. What do I do? For now, nothing. The colonel will be here in 4 hours. He'll handle the release and the apology. You'll handle whatever comes after that. Price sat down heavily. Dismissed, Captain. Brennan walked back to his office in a daze. He pulled up the detention log and stared at Maya's name. In his mind, he replayed the confrontation at the gate. Her calm, her specific details about the Helmand Province operation, the way she'd said she knew 12 men personally. She'd been telling the truth the entire time. He thought about the challenge coin in the evidence locker, worn smooth at the edges, given by a SEAL team commander to someone who'd brought his men home. Not purchased online, not fake, real. Brennan put his head in his hands. In the detention cell, Maya heard footsteps approaching. Multiple sets. The door opened and Lieutenant Chun stood there with the staff sergeant. Ma'am, Chun said, her voice tight with something between relief and embarrassment. There's been a development. JSOC has been contacted. Someone's coming to verify your service record. Maya nodded slowly. Thank you for checking, Lieutenant. Not everyone would have. Chen's face colored. I should have done it sooner. My brother served with Team 5. He told me about ISA operators. I should have realized. Classification exists for a reason, Maya said. You followed the right process. The staff sergeant cleared his throat. Ma'am, we're moving you back to the holding room. More comfortable than this cell. It's not much, but it's what we can do right now. Maya stood. I appreciate it. As they walked back down the corridor, Chun walked alongside her. Can I ask you something? How do you stay so calm when someone accuses you of lying about your service? Maya considered the question. Because I know what I did. The men I serve with know what I did. That matters more than what someone who wasn't there believes. But it must make you angry. Maya glanced at her. Anger doesn't help anyone. Understanding might. They reached the holding room, and Chun opened the door. I'm sorry this happened to you. Maya stepped inside. You're learning an important lesson, Lieutenant. Trust your instincts, but verify the facts. Both matter. The door closed, and Maya was alone again. But this time, she knew the truth was coming. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 3? Colonel James Rodriguez's flight from Virginia touched down at North Island Naval Air Station 3 hours and 40 minutes after Chen's call to JSOC. He'd spent the flight reviewing Maya Torres's complete service record, the parts that would never be declassified, the operations that officially never happened, the contributions that would remain invisible to everyone except the people who'd been there. 47 missions. Not administrative support. Not peripheral involvement. 47 times she'd gone into denied territory with SEAL teams, providing real-time intelligence that shaped tactical decisions. 3 Purple Hearts for wounds sustained in combat. 1 Silver Star for extraordinary heroism. 2 Bronze Stars with V devices for valor. And some security captain at Coronado had arrested her for stolen valor. Rodriguez's driver took him straight to the base commander's office. Commander Price stood when he entered, the tension visible in his shoulders. "Colonel, I apologize for the situation. If I'd known about her classification status sooner, I could have intervened before charges were filed." Rodriguez waved off the apology. "The classification is the problem. ISA operators fall through the cracks because most people don't know they exist." "Where is she now?" "Holding room in the security building. We moved her from detention as soon as JSOC contacted us." Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "She was in a cell?" Price nodded. "For approximately 90 minutes before Lieutenant Chen's investigation flagged the ISA connection." "Show me to her. Then I want to talk to this Lieutenant Chen." "And Captain Brennan." Price led him across the compound toward the security building. The afternoon sun beat down on the asphalt, heat shimmering in waves. Rodriguez had made similar trips before, cleaning up classification messes, explaining to people that the operators they'd dismissed or questioned or arrested had actually done things that would make their careers look small by comparison. But it never stopped bothering him. The holding room door opened, and Rodriguez saw Maya Torres for the first time in 8 years. She looked older, thinner, but her eyes held that same steady awareness he remembered from tactical operations centers and mission briefings. Maya stood. "Colonel Rodriguez." He stepped inside, and the door closed behind him. "Sit down, Maya. Please." They sat across from each other at the small table. Rodriguez set his tablet down, but didn't open it. "I owe you an apology on behalf of the entire command structure. This should never have happened." Maya's expression didn't change. "The classification made it inevitable, sir. Most people don't know ISA existed. Fewer know we embedded with the teams. That's not an excuse for arresting you," Rodriguez said. "You presented valid identification. You explained your assignment within the limits of what you could disclose. Captain Brennan chose not to investigate further. He was protecting what he thought mattered. I understand that impulse." Rodriguez leaned back. "You're more forgiving than I'd be in your position." Maya's fingers traced the edge of the table. "I came here to honor 12 men who didn't make it home. Getting angry at a captain who doesn't understand classified operations won't bring them back." The Helmand Province mission. Rodriguez pulled up a file on his tablet. "I was the operational commander coordinating that mission from the TOC. I remember your call signs. Ghost 7, right?" Maya nodded, something shifting behind her eyes at the call sign. "That was a long time ago, sir. I remember your voice on the radio. Calm, precise. Taliban fighters were hitting you from 3 sides, and you sounded like you were reading a weather report." Rodriguez scrolled through the mission log. "You called in the medevac coordinates while translating intercepted enemy communications. Simultaneously, 4 of them made it out because you knew where the clear route was," Maya said quietly. 8 of them didn't make it out at all. The 8 aren't your fault. The 4 are your credit." Rodriguez closed the tablet. "That SEAL team commander who gave you the challenge coin. He wrote you up for the Silver Star. Did you know that?" "I knew someone did. They don't tell you who submits the paperwork. It was him. He wrote 3 pages about what you did that day. How you maintained operational effectiveness while wounded. How you refused evacuation until all casualties were processed. How the team wouldn't have survived without your intelligence support." Rodriguez's voice roughened. That challenge coin Captain Brennan thought was fake? That commander carried an identical one until the day he died. Kandahar, 2015. Maya's breath caught. I didn't know. There's a lot you don't know because the classification kept you invisible. Rodriguez stood. But that ends today. I'm getting your possessions returned, getting you full access to this base, and making sure everyone understands exactly who you are and what you've done. The classification still exists, sir. I can work within it. Come on. They left the holding room together. In a security office, Lieutenant Chun stood at attention when they entered. Rodriguez studied her for a moment, noting the intelligence in her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands that spoke of nerves but not fear. Lieutenant Chun, I understand you're the one who contacted JSOC. Yes, sir. I ran the tactical knife serial number and found the ISA connection. My brother served with Team 5 and mentioned female intelligence operators, so I put the pieces together. Rodriguez glanced at Commander Price. This lieutenant showed more investigative instinct in 2 hours than some people show in entire careers. What's her current assignment? Price cleared his throat. Base security rotation. She's 6 months into a 2-year assignment. Rodriguez turned back to Chun. Have you considered intelligence as a career path, Lieutenant? I've thought about it, sir. My degree is in Middle Eastern Studies with language focus. Rodriguez pulled out a business card and handed it to her. Send me your service record. JSOC always needs people who can think critically and follow through on their instincts. You did both today. Chen's face flushed. Thank you, sir. Now, where's Captain Brennan? Price gestured toward a closed office door. Waiting in his office as requested. Rodriguez walked to the door and entered without knocking. Brennan stood beside his desk, his posture rigid, his face pale. Captain, I'm Colonel Rodriguez, JSOC. I'm here about Maya Torres. Brennan's voice came out strained. Sir, I made a mistake. I should have investigated more thoroughly before making the arrest. Rodriguez closed the door behind him. Tell me what you were thinking when you stopped her at the gate. Brennan swallowed. I saw a woman wearing a SEAL trident. Women weren't integrated into SEAL teams during her service dates. The insignia looked unauthorized. I thought I was protecting the integrity of the community. What did she tell you when you questioned her? She said she was an intelligence operative attached to SEAL Team 3, that her service was classified, that she was authorized to wear the insignia as part of her cover assignment. Brennan's hands clenched at his sides. She told me the truth, and I didn't believe her. Why not? Because it seemed impossible. Because I'd never heard of ISA. Because I assumed I knew what legitimate service looked like. Brennan met Rodriguez's eyes. There's no excuse, sir. I was wrong. Rodriguez studied him for a long moment. The ISA program is classified for operational security reasons. That classification creates situations like this. You're not the first person to make assumptions based on incomplete information. That doesn't make it right. No, it doesn't. Rodriguez leaned against the desk. But what matters now is what you learn from this. Maya Torres has 47 combat missions. 3 Purple Hearts, a Silver Star. She's done things you and I will never be clear to know about. And you treated her like a criminal. Brennan's face went even paler. How do I fix this? You can't, Rodriguez said bluntly. What's done is done. But you can make sure it doesn't happen again. You can teach other security personnel about the existence of classified operators. You can build verification protocols before jumping to arrest. You can remember that service takes many forms, and not all of them fit the templates you've been taught. Yes, sir. Rodriguez straightened. Commander Price is determining your formal consequences. But I want you to understand something, Captain. Maya Torres could have been angry. She could have demanded your career. Instead, she told Lieutenant Chun that you were trying to protect what you thought mattered. She showed you more grace than you showed her. Brennan's eyes closed briefly. That makes it worse. Good. That means you're learning. Rodriguez opened the door. Now come with me. You're going to return her possessions and apologize properly. They walked back to the evidence room, where Maya waited with Commander Price and Lieutenant Chun. Brennan retrieved the sealed evidence bags and set them on the counter. His hands shook slightly as he opened each one. The challenge coin emerged first, that worn SEAL Team 3 insignia catching the overhead lights. Brennan placed it on the counter in front of Maya. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice rough. "This is real. You earned it. I should have recognized that." Maya picked up the coin, her thumb finding the familiar worn edge. "Thank you, Captain." The tactical knife came next, the serial numbers that had unlocked the truth etched along the blade. Then the leather journal, its water-stained cover holding whatever memories Maya had chosen to preserve. Brennan stepped back. "Ma'am, I owe you more than an apology. I accuse you of dishonoring men you actually served with, men you bled for. There's no excuse for that." Maya gathered her possessions carefully. "You were protecting something important, Captain. The SEAL community's integrity matters. You just didn't have all the information. That's not good enough." "Maybe not," Maya said, "but it's where we start." Rodriguez watched the exchange with approval. This was how operators handled things. Direct, honest, without unnecessary drama. Maya had every right to be furious, but she'd chosen understanding instead. Commander Price cleared his throat. "Ms. Torres, you have full base access restored. The memorial service is tomorrow at 0900 hours. We'll ensure you have transportation and anything else you need." Maya nodded. "I appreciate that, Commander." "One more thing," Rodriguez said. "I'd like you to meet with some of the current Team 3 members. They should know about the operators who served with their predecessors, if you're comfortable with that." "Within classification limits," Maya said. "Yes, sir." They left the security building together, Maya carrying her gear bag with her possessions restored. The late afternoon sun painted the base in golden light. Somewhere across the compound, SEAL candidates were running training exercises, their cadence calls drifting on the breeze. Rodriguez walked Maya toward the guest quarters. "Tomorrow's memorial will mean something different now. People will know you were actually there." Maya looked toward the training grounds. "The memorials always meant something, Colonel. The men on that marker earned their place there. My presence doesn't change that." "No," Rodriguez said, "but it completes the picture. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 4? The guest quarters were simple but clean, a single room with a bed, desk, and small bathroom. Maya set her gear bag on the desk and sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands found the challenge coin automatically, thumb tracing the familiar worn edges. The Team 3 insignia stared back at her, 12 years of memory compressed into metal. A knock on the door pulled her from the past. She opened it to find Colonel Rodriguez with 3 men in khaki uniforms. The senior chief's shoulder bore the anchor and stars of his rank, his weathered face marked by years of sun and salt water. "Maya," Rodriguez said, "I'd like you to meet some current Team 3 members. Senior Chief Marcus Webb, Petty Officer First Class Tyler Grant, and Petty Officer Second Class James Morrison." Webb extended his hand. "Ma'am, the Colonel briefed us on your service. It's an honor to meet you." Maya shook his hand, then the others. "The honor's mine, Senior Chief. Your team has a proud history. We've been looking through unit records from your time period," Grant said. "Within what's available to us, anyway. A lot of it's still classified." Rodriguez leaned against the doorframe. "I told them about the Helmand Province operation. Within limits." Webb's expression grew serious. 12 men lost in one mission. "That's the memorial tomorrow." Maya nodded. "Worst day of my life. We'd received intelligence about a high-value target meeting in a compound outside Lushkurgah. The intel was solid, but incomplete. We didn't know about the secondary force positioned in the hills. You were calling in the medevac while taking fire," Morrison said. "That's what the colonel told us." "The medevac coordinates were critical," Maya said quietly. "Taliban fighters controlled most of the terrain. There was only one safe approach corridor, and it kept shifting as their positions changed. I was monitoring their communications, tracking their movements, updating the flight crew in real time." Grant whistled low. "Most people can't do one of those tasks under fire. You were doing 3 simultaneously." 4, Rodriguez corrected. She was also coordinating with the team leader on defensive positions while treating her own wounds. Maya's jaw tightened. 8 men still died. For making it out doesn't balance that equation. Webb shook his head. "With respect, ma'am, 12 would have died without you. Those 4 survivors went on to complete dozens more missions. They had families, careers, lives, because you kept your head when everything went to hell. One of them was my platoon chief before he retired last year, Morrison added. He never talked much about Helmand Province, but when he did, he always mentioned the intelligence operator who saved his life. We didn't know it was you specifically, but we knew someone like you existed. Maya looked down at the challenge coin in her hand. Your platoon chief, what was his name? Chief Petty Officer Robert Martinez. Maya's breath caught. Robbie Martinez. He took shrapnel to his left shoulder and right leg. Refused morphine during extraction because he wanted to stay alert in case we needed another shooter. Morrison's eyes widened. That's him exactly. Still won't take pain medication if he can avoid it. Webb glanced at Rodriguez, then back to Maya. Ma'am, would you be willing to speak at the memorial tomorrow? Share what you remember about the men we're honoring? Maya hesitated. I'm not sure that's appropriate. The families will be there. They might not want to hear from someone who survived when their loved ones didn't. They might want to hear from someone who was actually there, Grant said gently. Someone who can tell them their husbands and fathers and brothers didn't die alone or forgotten. Rodriguez straightened. Maya, it's your choice. No pressure. But these men deserve to have their stories told by someone who knew them. Maya turned the challenge coin over in her fingers. Let me think about it overnight. Fair enough, Webb said. We'll be at the memorial either way. It means something to us that you came back. After they left, Maya sat alone with her memories. The faces of the 12 dead men cycled through her mind with perfect clarity. Sergeant Kyle Davidson, 24 years old, who'd shown her pictures of his newborn daughter 3 hours before the mission. Lieutenant Marcus Chun, 32, who'd joked that having an intelligence operator embedded meant they finally had someone who could translate the translator's translations. Petty Officer James Sullivan, 29, who'd covered her position when she'd been hit, taking rounds meant for her. She opened her leather journal, pages yellowed and water-stained. Inside, she'd written their names years ago, along with brief notes about each one. Not for official records. Those existed elsewhere in classified databases. These were personal, the things she wanted to remember. The jokes and quirks and human details that never made it into after-action reports. Another knock interrupted her reading. This time it was Lieutenant Chun, carrying a covered tray. I thought you might not have eaten, Chun said. Base dining facility closes soon, but I grabbed you a plate before they shut down. Maya accepted the tray. Thank you, Lieutenant. That was thoughtful. Chun lingered in the doorway. Can I ask you something, ma'am? Of course. How do you handle it when people don't believe you? When they look at you and see something impossible instead of something real? Maya gestured for Chun to sit. She set the tray aside and considered the question. I remind myself that their disbelief says more about their experience than my reality. Captain Brennan had never encountered someone like me. His framework didn't include female operators in that time period. That's an education problem, not a credibility problem. But it must hurt when someone calls you a liar about something you bled for. It does, Maya admitted. But anger doesn't fix ignorance. Education does. You proved that today when you investigated instead of just accepting Captain Brennan's conclusion. Chen's face colored slightly. I almost didn't. I almost just let it go because he's my superior officer and I'm only 6 months into this assignment. But you didn't let it go. That took courage. Or stubbornness. Chen smiled slightly. My brother says I never could leave things alone when they didn't make sense. That's a good quality in intelligence work. Maya leaned forward. Colonel Rodriguez gave you his card. Are you going to use it? I'm thinking about it. I say sounds interesting, but I don't know much about it. Most people don't. It's designed that way. Maya's voice took on a teaching quality. We operated in the gaps between conventional intelligence and special operations. When SEAL teams or Delta needed real-time intelligence in denied areas, I say went in first or embedded with them. We were translators, analysts, surveillance operators, whatever the mission required. And you wore their insignia. For operational security. If I'd been captured wearing intelligence insignia, it would have created problems. Wearing SEAL insignia meant I appeared to be what everyone expected to see with those units. She nodded slowly. So Captain Brennan wasn't completely wrong to question. He just didn't know enough to recognize what he was looking at. Exactly. Maya picked up her challenge coin. This coin tells my real story. The Team 3 commander who gave it to me knew what I'd done. The men who fought beside me knew. That matters more than strangers' opinions. What about the memorial tomorrow? Are you going to speak? I don't know yet. Maya set the coin down. Part of me wants to honor them publicly. Part of me thinks I should stay quiet and let them be remembered without complicating things with classification questions. Chun stood. Whatever you decide, ma'am, I'll be there. And I'll know what you did even if no one else does. After Chun left, Maya ate the meal slowly. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans. Standard military dining facility fare that tasted like 100 other bases and 1,000 other missions. She thought about the memorial service and the families who would attend and the weight of memory she carried. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. The message read, Maya, this is Robbie Martinez. Morrison told me you're at Coronado. Please call me. Maya stared at the number for a long moment before dialing. Martinez answered on the first ring. Ghost 7. The old call sign made her throat tight. Sidewinder 4. How are you, Robbie? Better than I have any right to be, thanks to you. Martinez's voice carried the rough edges of a man who'd seen too much. Morrison said you came back for the memorial. I promised I would. Eventually. There was a long pause. I never got to thank you properly. After Hellman, everything was chaos. Medical evacuation, surgery, recovery. Then I was back in rotation. By the time I looked for you, you'd already moved to your next assignment. You were bleeding out, Maya said. Thanks wasn't necessary. You kept me talking, kept me focused. I remember your voice on the radio, directing the medevac while you were calling out Taliban positions. I remember thinking if you could stay that calm, I could stay alive. You stayed alive because you're stubborn. Martinez laughed. Yeah, that helped too. Listen, I'm flying in tomorrow morning for the memorial. My wife and kids are coming. I want them to meet you. I want them to know who saved their husband and father. Maya's eyes burned. Robbie, 8 men didn't make it out. And 4 of us did. His voice firmed. Those 8 would want their brothers to live full lives. They'd want us to honor the person who made that possible. Don't diminish what you did, because not everyone survived. I'll think about it. Fair enough. See you tomorrow, Ghost 7. The line went dead. Maya sat in the quiet room, surrounded by memories of men who'd trusted her, fought beside her, died despite her best efforts, and survived because of her actions. Tomorrow she would stand at their memorial and decide whether to speak or stay silent. She opened her journal again and read the names. 12 men who'd become part of her permanent internal landscape. 12 reasons she'd come back to Coronado despite knowing the questions and skepticism her presence might create. The challenge coin sat on the desk, its worn surface catching the lamplight. Tomorrow it would come full circle, back to the place where the men who'd given it to her were honored in granite and memory. Maya closed the journal and tried to sleep. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 5? The memorial stood in a quiet corner of the base, a granite wall with 12 names etched in precise letters. Maya arrived 30 minutes before the scheduled service, wanting time alone with the names before the crowd gathered. Morning sun painted the granite in shades of gold and gray. She traced each name with her fingertips, the stone cool and permanent under her touch. SGT Kyle Davidson, LT Madfusjen, PO1 James Sullivan. The names continued down the wall, each one carrying weight she still felt 12 years later. You came back. Maya turned to find Senior Chief Webb approaching with several other men in dress uniforms. Behind them, families began arriving. Women with children who'd grown up without fathers. Parents who'd outlived their sons. Siblings carrying photographs. I promised I would, Maya said. Webb gestured to the men with him. Some of the current team wanted to be here early. We thought you might want company. Maya nodded her thanks as the team members formed a loose semicircle around the memorial. More personnel arrived in steady streams. Active duty SEALs, retired operators, base command staff. She recognized Colonel Rodriguez speaking with Commander Price near the seating area. Then she saw Robbie Martinez. He walked slowly, his left side carrying the slight hitch of old shrapnel wounds. A woman and 2 teenage children accompanied him. His daughter looked about 14, her face serious and curious. His son was maybe 12, wearing a SEAL t-shirt that was probably his father's from years ago. Martinez's eyes found Maya, and he changed direction immediately. His family followed as he approached the memorial wall. "Go 7," he said quietly, then louder for his family. "Sarah, Katie, Rob Jr., I want you to meet Maya Torres. She's the reason I'm here today." Maya's throat constricted. "Robbie, don't." His wife, Sarah, stepped forward and embraced Maya without warning. The hug was fierce and brief. "Thank you for bringing him home." Sarah's voice broke slightly. "Thank you for giving my children their father." Maya returned the embrace, uncertain what to say. "He fought hard to stay alive. That was him, not me." "Mom says you called in the helicopter while bad guys were shooting at you," Katie said, her teenage directness cutting through the emotion. "Something like that," Maya confirmed. Rob Jr. stared at her with wide eyes. "Dad says you knew where all the bad guys were because you could understand their radios. That was part of my job." Maya knelt to his level. "Your dad was very brave that day. A lot of men were. But 8 of them died," the boy said with the brutal honesty of children processing difficult truths. Maya met his eyes. "Yes, 8 very brave men died. That's why we're here today, to remember them and honor what they did." More families gathered around the memorial. Maya recognized grief in their postures, the particular weight of loss that never fully lifted. An older woman placed flowers at the base of the granite. A young man in his 20s, maybe a brother or friend, stood with his hand pressed against one of the names. The service began with Commander Price speaking about sacrifice and brotherhood. His words were formal but genuine. He introduced several speakers, including a Navy chaplain and a retired SEAL who'd served with Team 3 in earlier years. Then Price said something Maya hadn't expected. "We have someone special with us today." Maya Torres served as an intelligence operative embedded with SEAL Team 3 during the Helmand Province operation. She was there when these men fell. She's agreed to share her memories of that day. Maya's stomach dropped. She hadn't agreed to speak. But Webb was gesturing her forward, and Martinez was nodding encouragement. And suddenly she was walking to the front, facing a crowd of maybe 80 people who were waiting to hear about the worst day of her life. She stood before the memorial, the 12 names visible over her shoulder. Her hands found the challenge coin in her pocket, the familiar weight grounding her. "I'm not good at formal speeches," Maya began. "I'm better with tactical communications and intelligence reports. But these 12 men deserve more than reports. They deserve to be remembered as people." She turned slightly to look at the names. Sergeant Kyle Davidson showed me pictures of his daughter 3 hours before we left on patrol. She was 2 weeks old, and he was terrified of being a father, but completely in love with her. He told me he was going to teach her to surf when she was old enough. In the crowd, a woman's breath hitched. Maya recognized her from photos, Kyle's wife, now holding a teenage daughter who would never learn to surf with her father. Lieutenant Marcus Chun had a terrible sense of humor. Maya's voice steadied. He made jokes at the worst possible moments. During mission briefings, before operations, in the middle of firefights. It drove everyone crazy, but it also kept us from taking ourselves too seriously. He understood that humor was a weapon against fear. An older couple clutched each other, Marcus's parents processing this glimpse of their son. Petty Officer James Sullivan covered my position when I was hit. Maya's hand went unconsciously to her left shoulder, where the scar still marked her. I was translating intercepted communications when I took rounds. Sullivan moved to shield me while I stayed on the radio. He took fire mint for me. I finished the transmission, and he never complained about the risk he'd taken. She continued through the 12 names, sharing small human details. The ones who were funny, the ones who were serious, the ones who'd been scared but did their jobs anyway. Each story was brief but specific, painting pictures of men rather than statistics. When the ambush came, we were already compromised. Maya's voice dropped lower. The intelligence had been good, but incomplete. We knew about the primary force, but not the secondary element positioned in the hills. They hit us from 3 sides simultaneously. The crowd was absolutely silent. I was monitoring Taliban communications, calling defensive coordinates to our team leader, and directing the medevac flight crew. The helicopter couldn't land in the hot zone, so I had to guide them to the only safe approach corridor. That corridor kept changing as Taliban positions shifted. Maya pulled out the challenge coin, holding it up so the sun caught the trident insignia. The Team 3 commander gave me this 3 days after the operation. He said I brought them home. But the truth is more complicated. 4 men came home. 8 men died. I remember both groups with equal clarity. She looked out at the families. To those who lost someone that day, I want you to know they fought with incredible courage. They protected each other. They never gave up. And in their final moments, they were surrounded by brothers who honored them. To those whose family members survived, I want you to know it was a team effort. I did my part, but so did everyone else. No one person saved anyone. We saved each other as best we could. Maya stepped back from the front, her part complete. The chaplain said a closing prayer. The crowd began to disperse slowly, many coming forward to touch the memorial wall or leave flowers. Rodriguez approached Maya as she stood alone by the granite. That took courage. Maya shook her head. They deserve to be remembered as more than names on a wall. Mission accomplished. Rodriguez glanced at the families still gathered, sharing stories and tears. You gave them something important today. Martinez joined them with his family. Sarah embraced Maya again. Thank you for speaking. Hearing what Robbie was like that day, knowing he was with friends, it helps. Katie touched the memorial wall where James Sullivan's name was carved. This is the guy who saved you? Maya nodded. He saved me, so I could help save your dad. The teenager's expression was fierce. And I'm glad he was there. Rob Jr. looked up at Maya. Are you a SEAL? The question hung in the air. Maya glanced at Rodriguez, who gave a slight nod. I was an intelligence operator who worked with SEALs. I wasn't in their teams, but I fought beside them. They trusted me with their lives, and I try to be worthy of that trust. That's cool, the boy said with simple certainty. Senior Chief Webb gathered several current Team 3 members around the memorial. Ma'am, we'd like to add something to our unit spaces if you're comfortable with it. A photograph from that deployment showing the team with their intelligence operator. You're part of Team 3 history, and we want people to know that. Maya hesitated, then nodded. Within classification limits, yes. The morning wore on as people shared memories and stories. Maya found herself at the center of many conversations, filling in details that only someone who'd been there could provide. The families needed this, needed to understand what their loved ones had experienced, needed to know they hadn't died alone or meaninglessly. Captain Brennan appeared at the edge of the gathering. He kept his distance, clearly uncertain whether his presence was welcome. Maya caught his eye and gestured him over. Captain, I'm glad you came. Brennan looked uncomfortable. I wanted to pay respects, and to see who these men really were to you. Maya turned to face the memorial. They were teammates, brothers in the way combat creates. I would have died for any of them. 4 of them lived because circumstances allowed me to help. 8 of them died because circumstances didn't. I misjudged you badly, Brennan said quietly. Not just about your service, but about what it meant to you. You're learning. Maya's voice carried no anger. That's what matters. Lieutenant Shun joined them, her dress uniform crisp in the morning sun. Ma'am, some of the families want to thank you personally. Are you okay with that? Maya looked at the group of waiting family members, saw their grief and gratitude mixed together, and nodded. Yes, I'm okay with that. The next hour became a blur of embraces and tears and gratitude. Kyle Davidson's widow thanked her for the surfing story. Marcus Chin's father asked detailed questions about his son's final days. James Sullivan's younger brother, now grown into a man who looked startlingly like his fallen sibling, just held her hand and cried. Through it all, Maya maintained her composure, offering what comfort she could while carrying her own grief privately. These families had lost permanently. She'd lost too, but she'd also survived, which created a different kind of weight. As the memorial gathering finally dispersed, Rodriguez walked with Maya back toward the guest quarters. You did something important today. Those families needed to hear from someone who was there. Maya looked back at the granite memorial, now decorated with flowers and small American flags. I needed to do it for them, for the 12 men whose names are up there. They deserve to be remembered fully. They will be, Rodriguez said, because of you. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 6? The afternoon sun hung heavy over Coronado as Maya sat in the guest quarters, exhaustion settling into her bones. The memorial service had drained something from her, leaving behind a hollow feeling mixed with relief. She'd honored her promise. The 12 names on the granite wall had been remembered not as statistics, but as men with stories and families and futures that had been cut short. A knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. She opened it to find Lieutenant Chun holding 2 coffee cups from the base exchange. "Thought you might need this," Chun said, offering 1 cup. Maya accepted it gratefully. "Thank you." "Kumin." Chun entered and sat in the desk chair while Maya returned to the bed. They drank in comfortable silence for a moment before Chun spoke. "That was powerful, what you said at the memorial. Those families needed to hear it." Maya cradled the coffee cup. "I've been carrying those stories for 12 years. It felt right to finally share them." "My brother told me something once," Chun said. "He said the hardest part about losing teammates isn't the dying. It's the surviving, having to carry their memories and wonder if you're doing it justice. Your brother's wise. He has his moments." Chun smiled slightly. "He also said that when I called him about ISA operators, he knew exactly who you were. Well, not your name specifically, but he'd heard stories about the intelligence operator who saved half a SEAL team in Helmand Province. It's kind of legendary in the community, even if most of the details are classified." Maya looked surprised. "I didn't know that." The operators who were there told the story when they rotated back. Obviously, they couldn't include classified details, but they made sure people knew that an ISA operator had performed heroically. "My brother said it changed how a lot of guys thought about intelligence personnel. Made them realize you weren't just rear echelon support. That was never the goal." Maya's voice was quiet. "We were just doing our jobs. Under fire. While wounded. Directing 3 different operations simultaneously." Chun leaned forward. "Ma'am, can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead. How did you stay so calm yesterday when Captain Brennan arrested you? I've been thinking about it since this whole thing started. You never got angry, never raised your voice, never demanded he believe you. Most people would have lost it." Maya considered the question. Getting angry wouldn't have helped. Brennan didn't have the information he needed to understand who I was. Yelling at him about classification wouldn't have changed that, but must have hurt. Being accused of stolen valor when you'd actually earned everything you wore. It did hurt, Maya admitted, but I've learned that my sense of self can't depend on other people's recognition. I know what I did. The men I served with know. That has to be enough." She nodded slowly. "That's what Colonel Rodriguez meant when he said you showed Captain Brennan more grace than he showed you. Grace is easier than anger." Maya sipped her coffee. "Anger takes energy I'd rather spend on other things." They sat quietly for another moment before Chin spoke again. "The colonel offered me a chance to apply for intelligence work. I'm thinking about taking it." "You should. You have good instincts. You investigated when others would have just followed orders." "I almost didn't." Chin's voice dropped. "I almost just let it go because Captain Brennan is my superior and I'm new here. The only reason I kept digging was because something felt wrong. Trust that feeling." Maya met her eyes. "Intelligence work is about following threads even when you're not sure where they lead. You did that yesterday. You'll do well in that field." Chun stood. "Thank you, ma'am, for everything. You've taught me more in 2 days than I learned in 6 months of security rotation." After Chun left, Maya showered and changed into civilian clothes. The uniform felt too heavy after the memorial service, too weighted with meaning. She needed to be just Maya for a while, not Ghost 7 or the ISA operator or the woman who'd survived Helmand Province. She walked across the base toward the beach access point. The Pacific Ocean stretched gray-green and endless beyond the training facilities. A few people jogged along the sand, taking advantage of the cooling afternoon. Maya found a quiet spot and sat watching the waves. Her phone buzzed. A text from Martinez. "Thank you for today. Sarah hasn't stopped talking about finally meeting you. The kids too. You gave us something important." Maya typed back. "You all gave me something too. Closure, maybe, or at least a sense that the stories found the right ears." Another text arrived, this one from an unknown number. "Maya, this is Sarah Martinez. Robbie gave me your number. I wanted to tell you that Katie asked me tonight why women weren't recognized for combat service during your time period. I told her sometimes history takes a while to catch up with reality. Thank you for being part of that reality, even when it wasn't acknowledged. Maya stared at the message for a long moment before responding. Thank you for raising a daughter who asked those questions. She'll change things someday. The sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Maya thought about the journey that had brought her back to Coronado. The arrest at the gate seemed like it had happened weeks ago, rather than just yesterday. So much had shifted in such a short time. Footsteps in the sand announced someone's approach. Maya turned to find Captain Brennan, now also in civilian clothes, stopping a respectful distance away. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. Maya gestured to the sand beside her. "Free country." Brennan sat, keeping space between them. "I attended the memorial service. Stayed in the back. Didn't want to intrude. You had every right to be there." "Not sure about that." Brennan picked up a handful of sand and let it sift through his fingers. "I spent yesterday convinced you were dishonoring those men. Today I learned you were honoring them more deeply than I could have imagined." "You didn't know." Maya's tone held no accusation. "The classification system created that situation. That's what everyone keeps telling me. Colonel Rodriguez, Commander Price, Lieutenant Shun. They all say I couldn't have known because ISA operations were classified." Brennan shook his head. "But I could have investigated before arresting you. I could have listened when you explained your service. I could have shown basic respect instead of immediate skepticism. You thought you were protecting something important? I was protecting my assumptions." Brennan's voice hardened with self-criticism. "I assumed I knew what legitimate SEAL affiliation looked like. I assumed women couldn't have served in combat roles during your time period. I assumed your calm explanation was a con artist practice story. Those are understandable assumptions based on public information. They're lazy assumptions based on not wanting to dig deeper." Brennan turned to look at her. "You know what bothered me most about today? Hearing those families thank you. Hearing how you saved their husbands and fathers. Realizing that while you were doing that, I was probably sitting in some safe office processing paperwork and feeling important. Service takes many forms," Maya said. "You're protecting this base now. That matters. But I'm not taking fire while coordinating 3 operations and translating enemy communications." Brennan's frustration was palpable. "I'm checking IDs and filling out forms. It's necessary work, but it's not heroic work. Heroism is a moment. Dedication is a career." Maya watched the waves roll in. Those SEAL team members who survived Helmand Province went on to serve many more years. They did training rotations, administrative duties, routine patrols. Not every day was heroic, but every day they showed up and did the work, that was dedication. That matters just as much. Brennan was quiet for a long moment. "I've requested formal retraining on classified personnel protocols. Commander Price approved it. I'll be teaching the course to all security personnel starting next month." "Good." Maya nodded. "Make sure they understand that service history is more complex than official timelines suggest. Make sure they verify before they accuse." "I will. And I've written a personal letter of apology beyond the official one." Brennan pulled an envelope from his pocket. "I know it doesn't fix what happened, but I wanted you to have it." Maya accepted the envelope. "Thank you." They sat in silence, watching the ocean. The sun touched the horizon, spreading gold across the water. Somewhere behind them, training exercises continued. The base never really stopped, the rhythm of military life constant and ongoing. "Can I ask you something?" Brennan said finally. "Of course." "How do you let go?" The anger, the frustration, the hurt of not being recognized. How do you just move past it? Maya considered the question carefully. "I don't let it go completely. It's still there. But I choose not to let it define me." She turned to face him. "You accused me of stolen valor. That hurt. But you also learned from it, apologized for it, and are now working to prevent it from happening to others. That's growth. That matters more than holding on to anger. You're more forgiving than most people would be. Maybe, or maybe I've just learned that forgiveness takes less energy than resentment." Maya stood and brushed sand from her jeans. Life's too short to spend it angry at people who were trying to do the right thing, even if they did it wrong. Brennan stood as well. For what it's worth, meeting you has changed how I think about my job. About verification and respect, and not jumping to conclusions. Then something good came from a bad situation. Maya offered her hand. Take care, Captain. They shook hands. The gesture formal, but genuine. Brennan walked back toward the base while Maya remained on the beach watching the sunset complete its arc. The day had been long and emotionally exhausting, but had also brought closure she hadn't expected. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Colonel Rodriguez. Dinner at the O Club at 1900 if you're interested. Senior Chief Webb and some of the team will be there. Informal gathering to continue the conversation from today. Maya checked the time. She had 90 minutes. Enough time to return to the guest quarters, change back into appropriate clothes, and prepare herself for more stories and memories and the complex joy of being recognized after years of invisibility. She typed back, I'll be there. Walking back across the base, Maya felt lighter than she had in years. The weight of carrying 12 stories alone had been distributed among the families and teammates who needed to hear them. The burden of being doubted had transformed into an opportunity for education. The isolation of classified service had cracked open to reveal a community that wanted to honor her contribution. Tomorrow she would leave Coronado and return to her civilian life. But tonight she would sit with warriors who understood what she'd done and families who were grateful she'd done it. That was enough. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 7? The Officers Club at Coronado occupied a building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. Maya arrived at exactly 1900 hours, old habits of punctuality still governing her movements. Inside, she found Colonel Rodriguez at a large table surrounded by current team 3 members, several retired operators, and a few family members from the memorial service. Senior Chief Webb stood when she entered. Ma'am, glad you could make it. He gestured to an empty chair between himself and Rodriguez. We saved you a seat. Maya settled in as introductions went around the table. Some faces she recognized from the memorial. Others were new. A retired Master Chief named Thomas Reeves had served with Team 3 in the years before the Hellman operation. Petty Officer Grant sat across from her with his wife Jennifer. Martinez was there with Sarah, though they'd left the kids with family for the evening. This isn't an official function, Rodriguez explained as drinks arrived. Just people who wanted to continue the conversation from today. Share stories, fill in gaps, honor the connections. Maya appreciated the informal nature. Official functions carried weight and protocol. This felt more like family gathering, the kind where people could speak freely without worrying about rank or procedure. Reeves leaned forward, his weathered face serious. I trained half the men who went on that Hellman mission. Davidson, Chun, Sullivan. Good operators. I've always wondered what really happened that day. The official reports are sanitized. Maya glanced at Rodriguez, who nodded slightly. Within classification limits, I can tell you some of it. The table went quiet as Maya described the operation. She kept classified details vague, but painted the tactical picture. The intelligence about the high-value target. The approach to the compound. The secondary force that appeared from unexpected positions. The chaos when the ambush began. We had maybe 30 seconds of warning, Maya said. I was monitoring Taliban communications and heard them coordinate the attack. I called it out, but there wasn't enough time to reposition. They hit us from 3 directions simultaneously. Reeves nodded. Classic L-shaped ambush. Hard to defend against when you're already in the kill zone. Our team leaders started organizing defensive positions immediately. Maya's hands moved unconsciously, sketching positions on the table. But we were taking heavy casualties. That's when the medevac became critical. We needed to get wounded out fast, or we'd lose everyone. You were hit early in the engagement, Martinez said. Second or third volley. Maya touched her left shoulder reflexively. Took rounds here and in my side. Sullivan moved to cover my position while I stayed on the radio. I couldn't leave the communication gear. We needed that medevac. Sarah Martinez reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. Thank you for staying on that radio. The emotion in her voice made Maya's throat tight. I was doing my job. Your job nearly got you killed, Webb said quietly. Most people would have sought cover and let someone else handle the comms. Someone else couldn't translate the Taliban communications, Maya countered. They were adjusting their positions constantly, trying to cut off our escape routes. I had to monitor their traffic and update our team leader in real time, while also directing the medevac pilot to the one safe approach corridor. 3 tasks simultaneously while wounded, Rodriguez said. That's why you received the Silver Star. Grant's wife, Jennifer, spoke up. I don't understand military operations very well, but that sounds impossible. How do you concentrate on 3 things when people are shooting at you? Maya, consider the question. You focus on what needs to happen next. Not the fear, not the pain, just the next task. Translate this radio transmission. Update the team leader. Correct the pilot's approach vector. 1 task at a time, executed as cleanly as possible. But you were bleeding, Jennifer persisted. Yes, but bleeding doesn't stop radio waves. The Taliban were still communicating, the medevac still needed guidance. Our team leader still needed tactical information. My bleeding was less important than those tasks. Reeves studied her with professional interest. That's the mark of a true operator. Mission first, self second. The waiter arrived with food, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Stories about training mishaps, memorable deployments, the peculiar humor that developed in high-stress environments. Maya found herself laughing at Reeves's description of a training exercise gone wrong, appreciating how these warriors used humor to process trauma. Martinez raised his glass. I want to make a toast. To Ghost 7, who brought brothers home. The table raised their glasses in unison. Maya felt heat rise in her face, but accepted the honor with a nod. And to the 8 who didn't make it home, Sarah added quietly, may their sacrifice never be forgotten. They drank in solemn silence. The weight of memory settled over the table like a familiar blanket. These people understood loss in ways civilians never could. They'd all buried friends, all carried names that would never fade from their internal rosters. Webb turned to Maya. The team wants to add you to our heritage displays. We have photographs and memorabilia from major operations throughout Team 3 history. The Hellman mission is there, but it's incomplete without acknowledging the ISA operator who made the difference. Maya hesitated. The classification issues. Rodriguez spoke up. I can work within those constraints. We won't use your full name or specific operational details. But we can acknowledge that an ISA intelligence operator embedded with the team performed heroically. Maybe use your call sign, Ghost 7. Maya nodded slowly. That feels appropriate. Grant leaned forward. We've also been discussing something else. The newer team members, the ones who weren't around during your era, they need to understand that special operations have always included more than just shooters. Intelligence operators, logistics personnel, medical staff, all of them are part of the mission's success. You want to use my story as a teaching example, Maya said. With your permission, Webb confirmed. Not to make you famous, but to help younger operators understand that the person providing their intelligence might be taking the same risks they are. Maya thought about Lieutenant Shun, about Captain Brennan's retraining program, about all the times ISA operators have been dismissed as rear echelon support. If her story could change that perception even slightly, it might be worth the exposure. Yes, she said. Use it. The dinner continued with more stories and more laughter. Reeves described some of the legendary training failures from his instructor days. Grant shared a story about his first combat deployment when he'd been so nervous he'd nearly shot his own reflection. Sarah Martinez talked about the challenge of military spouse life, the constant moving and uncertainty. Maya found herself relaxing in ways she rarely did. These people understood her world without needing explanation. They knew what it meant to live with classification restrictions. They recognized the specific weight of combat memories. They appreciated the bonds formed under fire. As the evening wound down, Rodriguez walked Maya back toward the guest quarters. The night air was cool coming off the bay, carrying the salt smell of the ocean. This has been a remarkable 2 days, Rodriguez said. You came here expecting a simple memorial service, and instead became the center of an education about classified service. Not what I planned, Maya agreed, but necessary. Rodriguez stopped walking and turned to face her. The ISA program was shut down officially in 2009, but operators like you kept working in different capacities through the transition years. Your service exists in a gray area of military history. Most of it will stay classified for decades. But pieces of it, like what happened in Helmand Province, those stories need to be told. Within limits. Within limits, Rodriguez confirmed, but told nonetheless. Because the next generation of operators needs to know that intelligence personnel aren't just support. They're partners in the mission. They reached the guest quarters and paused outside. Maya looked back toward the memorial site, barely visible in the darkness. Those 12 names, she said quietly. They're why I do this. Why I came back. Why I spoke today. Why I agreed to let Webb use my story. They deserve to be remembered fully, and that includes remembering everyone who fought beside them. Rodriguez's expression was grave. They'd be proud of how you've honored them. I hope so. After Rodriguez left, Maya entered the guest quarters and sat on the bed. The day felt impossibly long, stretching from the memorial service through the beach conversation with Brennan to the dinner gathering. So many emotions compressed into such a short time. Her phone showed several new messages. Katie Martinez had sent a text. Ms. Torres, thank you for telling us about my dad's mission. I'm writing a school report about women in combat, and I'm going to include information about ISA operators. My teacher said not many people know about that. Maya smiled and typed back. That's a great report topic. Let me know if you need any unclassified information for it. Another message from Lieutenant Shun. Ma'am, I submitted my application to JSOC intelligence programs tonight. Colonel Rodriguez's recommendation helped. Whatever happens, thank you for showing me what's possible. Maya responded, You'll do great things, Lieutenant. Trust your instincts. The final message was from Senior Chief Webb. Team meeting tomorrow morning at 0800 if you're available. We want to show you the heritage display area and get your input on how to present the Helmand operation appropriately. Maya checked her flight information. Her departure wasn't until 1400 hours. She had time. Sure, I'll be there. She prepared for bed, body exhausted but mind still processing everything. 2 days ago, she'd been arrested as a fraud. Now she was being integrated into Team 3's official history. The transformation was dizzying. But underneath the recognition and the apologies and the honors, what mattered most was simpler. She'd kept her promise to 12 men who died in Helmand Province. She'd come back to remember them. She'd made sure their families knew they'd been loved and valued by the people who fought beside them. Everything else was secondary to that. Maya closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, the faces of the 12 dead men didn't haunt her. They simply existed in her memory as they'd been, brave and flawed and human. She'd honored them properly. That knowledge settled into her chest like a weight, lifting rather than descending. Tomorrow would bring more conversations and more planning for how to preserve this history. But tonight, Maya Torres could rest knowing she'd fulfilled her promise. The memorial service had been for them. Everything after had been for the future, ensuring that operators like her wouldn't be invisible forever. Both purposes mattered equally. She slept deeply for the first time since arriving at Coronado. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 8? Maya arrived at the Team 3 compound at 0745 hours, early enough to watch the morning training runs along the beach. The rhythmic cadence calls drifted across the base, a sound that connected past to present in an unbroken line. Senior Chief Webb met her at the entrance, already in his working uniform despite the early hour. Morning, ma'am. Coffee's on inside if you need it. Maya followed him through security checkpoints into the team spaces. The walls were covered with photographs spanning decades of operations. She recognized some of the faces from her time embedded with the unit. Others belonged to eras before and after her service. The Heritage Room occupied a climate-controlled space designed to preserve memorabilia and documents. Webb unlocked the door and gestured her inside. We've been working on this display for the Helmand operation since the memorial was erected, but something always felt incomplete about it. Maya understood immediately when she saw the current display. 12 photographs of the fallen operators were arranged in a semicircle. Below each photo were their names, ranks, and dates of service. In the center was a map of the Helmand province area with the operation site marked. But the narrative text focused only on the tactical elements, the enemy forces encountered, the casualties sustained. It's accurate but hollow, Webb said. It doesn't explain how 4 men survived when 8 didn't. It doesn't mention the intelligence operator who made the difference. Maya studied the display carefully. You can't use my full name or detailed operational information. The classification restrictions still apply. Understood. Webb pulled out a tablet showing a proposed revision. We're thinking something like this. The revised text acknowledged that an intelligence support activity operator designated Ghost 7 had embedded with the team. It described her role in monitoring enemy communications, directing the medical evacuation, and providing real-time tactical intelligence while wounded. The language was careful, avoiding classified details while conveying the essential truth. This works, Maya said. It honors what happened without compromising operational security. Webb swiped to another screen showing a photograph. We found this in the unit archives. It was taken 3 days after the Helmand mission. The photograph showed a group of exhausted operators standing outside a medical facility. Maya recognized several of the survivors, including Martinez. And there, on the edge of the group, was a younger version of herself. Her left arm was in a sling, bandages visible under her uniform sleeve. The SEAL team commander stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder in a gesture of recognition. "I'd forgotten about that photo," Maya said quietly. The commander kept it in his personal files. After he was killed in Kandahar, his family donated his papers to the team archives. "We found this last year when we were cataloging materials." Webb looked at her carefully. "We'd like to include it in the display if you're comfortable with that." Maya stared at the image. She looked so young, so worn down by what she'd experienced. But her eyes in the photograph held the same determination they still carried today. "Use it," she said. "These men earned recognition. If my face in that photo helps tell their complete story, then it should be there." Webb made notes on his tablet. "We'll include your call sign and a brief description of ISA operations. Nothing classified, just enough context for people to understand what you contributed." Petty Officer Grant entered the Heritage Room carrying a box. "Ma'am, we have something else we wanted to show you." He set the box on a table and opened it carefully. Inside was the challenge coin Maya had shown at the memorial service. Except this wasn't her coin. This one was pristine, freshly minted with the same SEAL team, 3 insignia. "We had a special run made," Grant explained. "Colonel Rodriguez approved it. It's a commemorative coin for the Helmand province operation. All the survivors are getting one, along with the families of the fallen." Maya picked up the coin, feeling its weight. One side bore the Trident and Team 3 designation. The other side was engraved with simple text. "Helmand Province, 2012. 12 heroes. 4 survivors. 1 guardian." "Guardian," Maya repeated. "That's what Martinez calls you," Webb said. "He told us yesterday that you were their guardian angel that day. The person watching over them when everything went wrong." "I'm not an angel. I'm an operator who did her job. And that's exactly why the term fits," Grant said. "You weren't divine intervention. You were skill and training and courage under fire. That's more valuable than miracles." Maya's throat tightened as she studied the coin. "The families are receiving these?" "All of them." Webb pulled out several more from the box. "We're presenting them at a private ceremony next month. We'd like you to be there for that." "I'll try." Maya set the coin down carefully. "This is beautiful work." "It's important work," Webb corrected, "making sure people remember accurately. Not just that men died, but who stood beside them and why some survived." They spent the next hour reviewing other elements of the display. Webb showed her archived mission reports with classified sections redacted. Grant presented a timeline of the operation that Maya helped refine for accuracy. They discussed how to present ISA operations to a general military audience without revealing information that remained sensitive. Lieutenant Chun arrived mid-morning with Commander Price. The commander examined the proposed display with careful attention to detail. This is exactly what we need, Price said. It tells a complete story without compromising security. Colonel Rodriguez reviewed the classification aspects and approved the language. Chin studied the photograph of Maya with the team. Ma'am, seeing you in that picture, knowing what you've just been through, it makes everything more real. That's the point, Maya said. War isn't abstract. It's people making impossible choices and living with the consequences. Price turned to Maya. I want to apologize again for what happened when you arrived at this base. Captain Brennan acted hastily, but the underlying issue is systemic. We didn't have adequate protocols for recognizing personnel with classified service histories. You're fixing that now, Maya said. That's what matters. Brennan's retraining program launches next week. Every security officer on this base will learn about ISA operations, classification markers to watch for, and verification procedures before making accusations. Price's expression was grave. Your arrest became a teaching moment. That doesn't excuse it, but at least something constructive came from it. Rodriguez arrived shortly before noon, reviewing the heritage display with satisfaction. This is excellent work. It preserves the history while respecting the classification. He turned to Maya. I've been in contact with other JSOC units about similar displays. There are dozens of ISA operators whose contributions have been invisible for too long. We're starting to change that. Maya emphasized, most of it will stay classified for decades. True, but pieces can emerge. Enough to ensure that future operators understand the full scope of special operations support. Rodriguez handed her a folder. I prepared a summary of your service record with all classified material removed. It's suitable for public release. You can share it with family, potential employers, whoever needs to understand your background. Maya opened the folder, scanning the sanitized version of her 8 years in uniform. The document confirmed her Navy service, her attachment to special operations units, her awards and decorations. It omitted mission details and specific operations, but provided enough information to establish credibility. Thank you, Colonel. This will help. There's one more thing. Rodriguez pulled out another document. JSOC is establishing a recognition program for ISA veterans. It's not public, but within the special operations community, we're acknowledging your contributions formally. You'll receive a certificate and a letter from the JSOC commander. Maya felt emotion rising in her chest. After years of invisibility, suddenly everyone wanted to recognize what she'd done. The attention was overwhelming and welcome in equal measure. The group moved to a conference room where lunch had been set up. As they ate, conversation flowed naturally between operational stories and personal updates. Webb described his teenage daughter's college plans. Grant talked about his wife's new business venture. Chin shared her excitement about the JSOC intelligence application process. Maya found herself contributing stories about her post-military life. She'd gone into private security consulting, using her language skills and intelligence training in corporate contexts. The work was less intense than military operations, but occasionally challenging in its own ways. Do you miss it? Grant asked. The operational tempo, the mission focus? Sometimes, Maya admitted. But I also appreciate being able to sleep without wondering if mortars will land nearby. There's value in peaceful, mundane existence. Martinez would say the same thing, Webb said. He told me once that the best part about retirement was boring Saturdays with his family. That's what we fought for, Maya said. The right to have boring Saturdays. For ourselves and for everyone else. Rodriguez checked his watch. Maya, your flight leaves at 1400. We should probably wrap this up. The group walked Maya back to the guest quarters where her bag waited. Each person offered thanks and farewells. Webb shook her hand firmly. You're part of Team 3 history now, ma'am. Officially and permanently. Grant handed her one of the commemorative coins. Take this one now. We'll send you another before the ceremony next month. Chin embraced her quickly. Thank you for showing me what real courage looks like. Price offered a formal salute. It's been an honor having you here, Ms. Torres. You've taught us all something important. Rodriguez drove Maya to the air station himself. They rode in comfortable silence for most of the journey, two veterans who understood that not everything required words. As they pulled up to the terminal, Rodriguez spoke. You changed things here, Maya. Not just the displays and the protocols, but people's understanding of what service means. That impact will outlast all of us. I hope the 12 men on that memorial would approve. They would. Rodriguez's voice was certain. You honored them perfectly. Maya gathered her bag and stepped out of the vehicle. She paused before closing the door. Thank you for flying out here personally, Colonel. It mattered more than you know. Take care of yourself. Go 7. Maya walked into the terminal, her stride steady and sure. Behind her, Coronado held the memorial to 12 fallen warriors and the beginning of recognition for operators who'd served in classified shadows. Ahead of her lay a return to civilian life, enriched by the knowledge that her service was finally being acknowledged by the people who mattered most. The challenge coin rested in her pocket, new metal carrying old meaning. She touched it briefly as she approached the security checkpoint, feeling the weight of promises kept and stories told. 2 days ago, she'd been arrested at the gate. Now she departed with honor restored and history preserved. The transformation was complete. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 9? 3 weeks after leaving Coronado, Maya sat in her home office reviewing security proposals for a corporate client when her phone rang. The number showed a Virginia area code she recognized. JSOC headquarters. Ms. Torres, this is Captain Williams from the JSOC Public Affairs Office. Colonel Rodriguez asked me to contact you about a developing situation. Maya set down her pen. What kind of situation? Your story is spreading through the special operations community faster than we anticipated. We've received inquiries from 4 other bases about similar incidents involving ISA veterans being questioned or dismissed. Williams paused. You become something of a catalyst. That wasn't my intention. We understand, but the effect is significant. Williams continued. Several retired ISA operators have reached out saying they've faced similar challenges with VA benefits, employment verification, or base access. The classification created systemic recognition problems we're only now beginning to address. Maya thought about the years she'd carried her service record in silence, the time she'd omitted military experience from job applications because explaining ISA operations was impossible without classification clearance. How can I help? She asked. Colonel Rodriguez is organizing a working group to develop better protocols for recognizing classified service. He'd like you to participate as a subject matter expert. It would involve some travel to Virginia and occasional video conferences. Maya considered the proposal. Her consulting work was flexible enough to accommodate travel. And if her experience could help other veterans avoid the treatment she'd received at Coronado, the effort seemed worthwhile. I'm interested. Send me the details. After the call ended, Maya opened her email to find messages from 3 people she hadn't heard from in years. Former ISA colleagues who'd learned about the Coronado incident through the military grapevine. Each message shared similar stories of being questioned, doubted, or dismissed when trying to access veteran services or military facilities. One message came from Christine Park, who'd operated in Iraq during the same years Maya was in Afghanistan. Christine described being denied entry to a VA hospital because the staff didn't believe her service record. Another came from David Hassan, who'd embedded with Delta Force and later been accused of fabricating his military experience when applying for a government security position. Maya responded to each message, sharing what JSOC was doing to address the recognition problem. She suggested they contact Captain Williams about joining the working group. Within hours, 3 more former ISA operators had reached out, creating an informal network of people who'd served in shadows and were now tentatively stepping into light. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lieutenant Shun. Ma'am, I got accepted into the JSOC intelligence training program. I start in 6 weeks. Thank you for encouraging me to apply. Maya smiled and typed back. Congratulations, Lieutenant. You earned this through your own merit. Trust your instincts and you'll do great work. That evening, Maya received a call from Sarah Martinez. The family had returned to their home in San Diego, but Sarah's voice carried excitement. Maya, you won't believe what happened today. Katie gave her presentation about women in combat at school. She included information about ISA operations and your service. Her teacher was so impressed she invited a local veterans group to hear Katie present again. That's wonderful, Maya said. Katie's going to change minds with that kind of work. She already has. Sarah's voice grew emotional. The veterans group included several older men who had very traditional views about women in combat. After Katie's presentation, 3 of them came up and said they hadn't known about ISA operations. One of them apologized for things he'd said in the past about women not belonging in combat roles. Education changes everything, Maya said. Katie's doing important work. She wants to study military history in college now. Says she wants to uncover more stories like yours that have been hidden by classification. Maya felt warmth spread through her chest. Tell her I think that's an excellent goal. After hanging up, Maya thought about ripple effects. She'd gone to Coronado for a memorial service. That simple act had triggered a chain of events that was now spreading through military communities, changing protocols, educating personnel, and inspiring young people like Katie Martinez to dig deeper into hidden histories. Her laptop chimed with an incoming video call. Senior Chief Webb appeared on screen, his face serious but pleased. Ma'am, wanted to give you an update on the heritage display. We officially opened it last week. The response has been incredible. Maya adjusted her camera angle. What kind of response? Webb's expression brightened. We've had over 200 people through the heritage room in the past week. Active duty, retirees, family members. Everyone wants to see the Hellman operation display. More importantly, people are asking questions about ISA operations and classified service. That's exactly what we hoped for. There's more. Webb leaned closer to his camera. 3 other SEAL teams have contacted us about creating similar displays, acknowledging their ISA operators. Team 5, Team 7, and Team 10 all had embedded intelligence personnel whose contributions were never properly recognized. Maya felt the weight of this expanding recognition. How many operators are we talking about? Webb consulted notes off-screen. Based on preliminary research, probably 60 to 80 ISA personnel embedded with SEAL teams between 2003 and 2015. Maybe twice that number worked with Army Special Operations. The total could be over 200 people whose service has been largely invisible. 200 stories, Maya said quietly. 200 careers hidden by classification. And now we're starting to tell them. Webb smiled. Your courage in coming back to Coronado, in speaking at that memorial despite being arrested, it opened a door. Other operators are seeing that they can be recognized without compromising security. They spent another 20 minutes discussing the heritage display details. Webb described how they'd created a QR code linking to additional unclassified information about ISA operations. He explained how younger team members were researching their unit histories more carefully, looking for operators whose contributions had been overlooked. Before ending the call, Webb said one more thing. Captain Brennan has become one of our strongest advocates for this work. He's giving presentations at security conferences about recognizing classified personnel. He uses what happened with you as a case study in how not to handle these situations. Good, Maya said. Learning from mistakes is how we improve. After the call ended, Maya reviewed the JSOC working group materials Captain Williams had sent. The scope was ambitious. They wanted to develop standardized protocols for base access, create training materials for security personnel, establish verification procedures that didn't compromise classification, and build a support network for ISA veterans navigating recognition challenges. Her role would focus on the veteran perspective. What barriers had she encountered? What solutions would have helped? How could they balance operational security with appropriate recognition? Maya spent the evening drafting notes, drawing on 12 years of experience navigating the gap between classified service and public recognition. She described the frustration of omitting military experience from resumes because explaining her actual work was impossible. She detailed the isolation of being unable to share war stories because most of her service remained secret. She outlined the psychological impact of having sacrifice go unacknowledged. But she also noted the positive developments. The Coronado incident had accelerated changes that were already overdue. The heritage displays would preserve history that might otherwise be lost. The working group could create systems that helped future veterans avoid the problems her generation had faced. Her phone showed another incoming call, this time from Colonel Rodriguez. Maya, I wanted to thank you personally for agreeing to join the working group. It's important work, Colonel. I'm glad to contribute. Rodriguez's tone shifted to something more reflective. I've been thinking about what happened at Coronado, how a simple memorial visit turned into something much larger. There's a lesson there about how individual actions can catalyze systemic change. I was just trying to honor 12 men I served with, Maya said. And in doing that, you honored hundreds of others whose service was similarly invisible. Rodriguez paused. The working group is scheduled to meet in 4 weeks. Between now and then, we're identifying other ISA veterans who might want to participate. Your network is already proving valuable. Happy to help connect people. There's one more thing. Rodriguez's voice carried weight. The JSOC commander wants to meet you. He's read the reports about Coronado and the Hellman operation. He thinks your experience provides important perspective on how we've failed to recognize our own people. Maya felt the significance of that statement. What does he want to meet? During your first trip to Virginia for the working group. It'll be informal but meaningful. After the call ended, Maya sat in the quiet of her office processing everything. 3 weeks ago, she'd been arrested as a fraud. Now, she was consulting with JSOC leadership about systemic recognition problems. The transformation continued to accelerate in unexpected directions. Her email chimed again, this time from Christine Park, the former ISA operator who'd been denied VA access. Maya, I just spoke with Captain Williams. I'm joining the working group too. Thank you for creating space for us to step forward. For years, I thought I was alone in dealing with these recognition issues. Maya typed back, you were never alone. We just couldn't find each other because we were all operating in classified shadows. Now we're building the network we should have had all along. She thought about the memorial service at Coronado, the 12 names on granite, the promise she'd kept. That promise had expanded beyond honoring the fallen to helping the survivors, the ones who'd served in invisible roles and were only now being recognized. Maya pulled out the commemorative coin Senior Chief Webb had given her. The weight felt right in her palm, solid and meaningful. One side showed the Seal Trident. The other side, Red Guardian. She'd been a guardian in Hellman Province, keeping watch over men who trusted her with their lives. Now, she was becoming a different kind of guardian, protecting the legacy of operators whose service deserved recognition. Both roles carried similar weight and responsibility. The evening deepened into night as Maya continued working on her notes for the JSOC meeting. Outside her window, the civilian world continued its ordinary rhythms. People came home from work, families ate dinner, children played in yards. The peaceful, mundane existence she and countless others had fought to preserve. Her phone showed one final message before she closed her laptop. It was from Katie Martinez. Ms. Torres, my history teacher, wants to interview you for an oral history project about women in combat. Would you be willing to talk with her? I promise we won't ask about classified stuff. Maya smiled and responded, I'd be honored. Have her teacher contact me. The ripples continued spreading outward, each one touching new people, changing perspectives, preserving history that might otherwise be lost. Maya had come to Coronado to honor the dead. She was leaving with a mission to serve the living. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 10? 4 weeks later, Maya stood in a conference room at JSOC headquarters in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The room held 15 people, all former ISA operators who'd answered the call to help develop recognition protocols. Some faces she recognized from her years in service. Others were strangers who'd operated in different theaters during different years. But they all shared the common experience of invisible service. Colonel Rodriguez opened the meeting with direct clarity. Thank you all for being here. What happened to Maya Torres at Coronado wasn't unique. It was symptomatic of a systemic failure to recognize personnel with classified service histories. We're here to fix that. Christine Park sat to Maya's left, her posture carrying the same operational awareness Maya recognized in herself. Beside Christine was David Hassan, the former Delta Force embedded operator. Around the table sat translators, analysts, surveillance specialists, and technical experts who'd all worked in shadows, supporting special operations. Rodriguez continued. We have 3 goals. First, develop standardized protocols for base access that don't require revealing classified information. Second, create training materials for security personnel about recognizing markers of classified service. Third, establish a support network for veterans navigating these challenges. A retired operator named Michael Chin spoke up. The VA is one of the biggest problems. I spent 8 months fighting to get my benefits approved because my service record is heavily redacted. They kept saying they couldn't verify my combat service. Maya nodded. I had similar issues. The benefits counselor didn't understand why entire years of my service record showed nothing but dates and duty stations with no operational details. That's a classification problem without an easy solution, Rodriguez said. We can't declassify operational details just to streamline benefits processing, but we can create verification channels that allow VA personnel to confirm service without accessing classified information. Captain Williams pulled up a presentation on the screen. We've been working with DoD personnel offices on a tier verification system. Security clearance holders at VA facilities could access confirmation of classified service without seeing operational details. It's similar to how employment verification works for civilian contractors with clearances. The group spent the next 2 hours dissecting the proposal, identifying potential problems, suggesting improvements. Maya appreciated the collaborative approach. These weren't bureaucrats designing policies in vacuum. These were operators who understood both the classification requirements and the practical problems veterans faced. During a break, Christine approached Maya with coffee. I never thought I'd be sitting in a room full of ISA veterans talking openly about her service. For years, I thought this would stay buried forever. Things are changing faster than anyone expected, Maya said. The Coronado incident forced conversations that were long overdue. You became the face of something bigger than yourself. Christine's expression was thoughtful. That takes courage in a different way than combat operations do. I just wanted to honor 12 men at a memorial service. And that honest intention resonated. Christine gestured around the room. Half these people reached out because they heard your story and realized they weren't alone. You created community where none existed before. The afternoon session focused on training materials for security personnel. David Hassan led this discussion, drawing on his experience being questioned at multiple military installations. Security officers need to understand that heavily redacted service records are a feature, not a bug, Hassan explained. When they see large gaps in someone's file, that should trigger additional verification, not immediate suspicion. What kind of verification? Someone asked. Phone calls to JSOC duty officers. Database checks for ISA personnel rosters. Cross-referencing awards and decorations that often indicate classified service. Hassan pulled up examples. A Silver Star or Bronze Star with V-device during years when someone's location is listed only as deployed forward is a strong indicator of special operations. Maya added her perspective. At Coronado, the tactical knife I carried had a serial number that identified it as ISA issue. Lieutenant Shun ran that number and found the truth. Security personnel need to know what markers to look for and how to verify them without compromising operational security. The group developed a checklist of indicators that suggested classified service. Challenge coins from special operations units. Equipment with specific serial number patterns. Awards that didn't match the visible service record. Language qualifications that seemed inconsistent with stated duty assignments. Rodriguez watched the collaboration with satisfaction. This is exactly what we needed. Practical guidance from people who've lived these challenges. As the day concluded, Rodriguez made an announcement. The JSOC commander wants to meet with all of you tomorrow morning. He's reviewed our preliminary recommendations and wants to hear directly from veterans about their experiences. That evening, Maya had dinner with Christine and David at a restaurant near base. They swapped stories about their respective ISA careers, filling in details that have been impossible to share for years. "I embedded with Delta Force for 14 months in Iraq," David said. "We conducted over 60 missions targeting high-value individuals. I was the primary Arabic translator and cultural advisor. But on my official record, that entire period shows up as attached to classified unit for training purposes." Christine laughed without humor. "I spent 2 years in Pakistan doing surveillance and intelligence collection in denied areas. My parents still think I was stationed in Germany doing administrative work. I couldn't tell them the truth then, and the classification means I still can't now." Maya understood completely. "My family knows I serve with Navy Special Operations, but they don't know details. My father was Navy too, so he understands some things stay classified. But I see the questions in his eyes sometimes." "Do you regret it?" David asked. "The invisibility, the sacrifices, the lack of recognition?" Maya considered the question carefully. "I regret that 8 men died in Helmand Province. I regret every mission that didn't end perfectly. But I don't regret the service itself. We did important work that kept people safe. The recognition is finally coming, even if it's delayed by a decade." Christine raised her glass. "To delayed recognition and the stubborn people who make it happen." They touched glasses in quiet solidarity. 3 veterans who'd operated in different theaters, but shared the common bond of classified service and deferred acknowledgement. The next morning, the working group assembled in a formal briefing room. The JSOC commander, a 2-star general named Thomas Brennan, entered with Colonel Rodriguez. Everyone stood at attention. "Take your seats," Brennan said, his voice carrying command presence. "I've read all your preliminary reports. Impressive work. But I want to hear directly from you about the human cost of our classification policies." For the next 90 minutes, veterans shared their stories. The denied VA benefits, the questioned credentials, the inability to explain career gaps to potential employers, the isolation of carrying combat experiences in silence, the psychological weight of invisible sacrifice. Maya spoke about Coronado, describing the arrest and the emotional impact of being called a fraud when she'd bled for the men she was there to honor. She explained how Lieutenant Chen's investigation had revealed the truth and how Captain Brennan's subsequent retraining program had turned a negative incident into educational opportunity. General Brennan listened without interruption, his expression growing more grave as the stories accumulated. When everyone had spoken, he stood and paced to the window. "I served 3 combat tours before taking this command. I thought I understood the costs of special operations. But listening to you today, I realize we've created an entire class of veterans who paid those costs without receiving recognition. That's unacceptable." He turned to face the group. "Everything you've recommended in your preliminary reports will be implemented. The tiered verification system for VA benefits, the training materials for security personnel, the support network for veterans. All of it. And we're going to move faster than standard DoD timelines." Rodriguez stood. "Sir, that will require significant resources and coordination across multiple commands. Then we'll get the resources and coordination." Brennan's voice was firm. "These people earned our support. They're getting it." The general walked around the table, making eye contact with each veteran. "Some of you have been waiting over a decade for this recognition. That's a failure of leadership at every level, including mine. We can't give you back the years of invisibility, but we can ensure the next generation of ISA operators doesn't face the same problems." He stopped beside Maya's chair. "Ms. Torres, your story became the catalyst for this change. On behalf of the entire Special Operations community, thank you for your courage in returning to Coronado and speaking truth even when it was difficult." Maya felt emotion rise in her throat, but kept her voice steady. "Thank you, sir. But this isn't just my story. It's the story of everyone in this room and dozens more who aren't here." "Agreed. Which is why we're making this a priority." Brennan returned to the front of the room. "I'm establishing a permanent office within JSOC to handle classified service recognition issues. It will coordinate with VA, DoD personnel, and individual commands to ensure veterans get the acknowledgement and support they've earned. Colonel Rodriguez will lead this effort." The room erupted in subdued but genuine applause. Maya glanced around at her fellow veterans, seeing relief and vindication in their faces. Years of invisible service were finally being acknowledged at the highest levels. After the general departed, the working group continued refining their recommendations. The energy in the room had shifted from frustrated advocacy to purposeful collaboration. They had command support and resources. Now they needed to execute effectively. Christine pulled Maya aside during a break. "This is really happening. We're actually going to fix this systemic problem." "It's a start," Maya said. "Complete recognition will take years, maybe decades as more operations get declassified. But we're creating the framework that makes recognition possible. That's more than I thought we'd achieve when I flew here 3 days ago." Christine's smile was genuine. "You started something important at Coronado." "No, Maya directive." Lieutenant Shun started it by investigating instead of assuming. Captain Brennan continued it by learning from his mistake. Senior Chief Webb advanced it by insisting on accurate heritage displays. I was just the person at the center of a situation that was waiting to happen. David Hassan joined them. "Doesn't matter who started it. What matters is we're finishing it together." He gestured at the room full of working veterans. "This is the team we needed all along." The working group concluded its session with assignments and timelines. Maya would lead the effort on VA coordination, leveraging her experience navigating benefits challenges. Christine would develop training materials for security personnel. David would build the veteran support network. Others took responsibility for policy documentation, legal review, and command coordination. As Maya prepared to leave Fort Bragg that evening, Rodriguez walked her to her car. "You've given these veterans something they desperately needed. Hope that their service will be recognized and community support while they navigate the process." "They gave me the same thing," Maya said. "I thought I was alone dealing with these issues. Turns out there were dozens of us facing identical challenges." Rodriguez handed her a folder. "The JSOC commander asked me to give you this. It's his personal letter of appreciation along with formal documentation of your contributions to this effort. He wanted you to have something tangible acknowledging what you've done." Maya accepted the folder. "Thank you, Colonel, for everything you've done to make this happen." The drive back to the airport gave Maya time to process the whirlwind days at Fort Bragg. She'd arrived uncertain what her role would be. She was leaving as a key architect of systemic change that would impact hundreds of veterans. Her phone showed messages from the working group members, already coordinating next steps and sharing resources. The community they'd built in 3 days would continue growing, supporting veterans who'd served in shadows and were finally stepping into recognition. Maya touched the challenge coin in her pocket, that constant reminder of promises kept and missions accomplished. The memorial service at Coronado had honored 12 fallen warriors. The working group at Fort Bragg would honor hundreds of invisible operators. Both missions mattered equally. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 11? 6 months after the Fort Bragg working group, Maya returned to Naval Amphibious Base Coronado for the commemorative coin ceremony. The transformation since her first visit was remarkable. She walked through the main gate without incident, her credentials verified smoothly by security personnel who'd completed Captain Brennan's revised training program. Senior Chief Webb met her at the entrance. "Welcome back, ma'am. Things are a bit different than last time you were here." Maya smiled. "No detention cells this time, I hope." "Definitely not." Webb gestured toward the Team 3 compound. "We got about 40 people coming to the ceremony. All the survivors from Hellman, the families of the fallen, and several active duty team members." They walked across the base as Webb updated her on developments. The heritage display had become one of the most visited spaces on the installation. 3 other SEAL teams had created similar displays acknowledging their ISA operators. The training program Brennan developed had been adopted by 17 military installations across the country. "Lieutenant Shun sends her regards," Webb said. "She's in the middle of her intelligence training and couldn't make it today. But she wanted you to know she's excelling in the program." "That doesn't surprise me at all," Maya said. The ceremony took place in a small auditorium near the memorial site. Maya entered to find Martinez already there with his family. Sarah embraced her warmly while Katie and Rob Jr. showed her a presentation Katie had given at a regional history competition. The project about women in combat had won first place. "Your teacher sent me a copy," Maya told Katie. "You did excellent research within the classification constraints." "I want to do more," Katie said, her teenage determination evident. "There's so many stories still hidden. When I'm older, I want to work on getting more operations declassified so people can know the full truth." "That's ambitious and important work," Maya said. "The world needs people willing to dig into hidden histories." Commander Price called the ceremony to order. The audience included Martinez and 3 other Hellman survivors, along with 12 families representing the fallen. Maya recognized Kyle Davidson's widow and teenage daughter. Marcus Chin's elderly parents sat in the front row. James Sullivan's younger brother, now in his 30s, attended with his wife and young children. Price spoke about the importance of remembering sacrifice accurately and completely. He acknowledged that classification had created gaps in understanding, but said those gaps were finally being addressed through proper protocols and recognition. "Today we honor the Helmand province operation in its full complexity," Price said. 12 warriors who gave their lives, for who survived against impossible odds, and 1 guardian who made survival possible. He gestured to Maya. "We also honor the dozens of ISA operators whose service has been invisible for too long." Webb came forward with a wooden case containing the commemorative coins. Each family received 1 for their fallen loved one. The 4 survivors received theirs directly. When Webb handed Martinez his coin, the retired chief held it with reverence. "This means more than you know," Martinez said quietly. "Having Ghost 7 officially recognized in our team history, it completes the story we've been telling for 12 years. Webb presented Maya with her coin last. The inscription caught the afternoon light streaming through windows. Guardian. The word carried weight she still found difficult to accept, but was learning to honor. After the formal presentations, the gathering became more personal. Families approached Maya with questions about their loved ones' final days. She answered carefully, balancing their need to know with the reality of what they could emotionally handle. Kyle Davidson's daughter, now 15, asked direct questions. "Did my dad suffer? Was he afraid?" "Maya honesty. He was professional until the end. He did his job protecting his teammates. The fear was there. It's always there in combat. But he didn't let it control him. And no, the end came quickly for him." The girl nodded, processing this difficult truth. "Thank you for telling me straight. Everyone else always tries to soften it." "You deserve the truth," Maya said. "Your father was brave." Real bravery includes being afraid and doing the job anyway. Marcus Chin's mother approached with his father beside her. They spoke limited English, but their gratitude transcended language barriers. Through a translator, they thanked Maya for being with their son when he died, for ensuring he wasn't alone. He was surrounded by brothers who loved him, Maya said through the translator. His final act was covering a teammate's position. He died as he lived, protecting others. The parents bowed deeply, a gesture of respect Maya returned. Some communications required no translation. Captain Brennan attended the ceremony, standing respectfully at the back of the room. During the reception afterward, he approached Maya cautiously. "Ma'am, I wanted you to see the results of what started here 6 months ago." Brennan pulled out his tablet showing statistics. "We've trained over 300 security personnel across 17 installations. We've identified 42 veterans with recognition issues and helped 38 of them resolve their problems. The tiered VA verification system is operational at 60 facilities." Maya studied the numbers. "That's significant progress in a short time. It's a start." Brennan's expression was serious. "But we've also discovered the scope of the problem is larger than anyone realized. Preliminary estimates suggest over 300 ISA veterans may have faced similar recognition challenges since 2009. 300 people carrying invisible service," Maya said quietly. "Colonel Rodriguez is pushing for expanded resources. The Permanent Recognition Office is growing. They're hiring additional staff and developing more sophisticated verification systems. Brennan looked at Maya directly. None of that happens without what you started here. What Lieutenant Chun started by investigating instead of assuming, Maya corrected. What you continued by learning from your mistake and building something better. Fair enough. Brennan gestured to the heritage display visible through glass walls. But you gave us all permission to acknowledge what had been hidden. That took courage. The ceremony concluded with everyone gathering at the memorial site. The 12 names on granite were now accompanied by a new plaque acknowledging the role of ISA operators in special operations history. The plaque didn't name Maya specifically, but referenced Ghost 7 and other call signs, preserving operational security while honoring contributions. Senior Chief Webb read the plaque aloud. In recognition of intelligence support activity operators who served alongside SEAL teams in combat operations. Their courage, skill, and sacrifice enabled mission success and saved American lives. Though their service remains largely classified, their dedication is honored and remembered. Maya stood with Martinez, Grant, Morrison, and the other survivors as families placed flowers at the memorial. The afternoon sun painted everything in golden light. 12 years had passed since Helmand Province. The grief remained, but had transformed into something bearable, something that could coexist with gratitude and purpose. After most attendees had departed, Maya remained at the memorial with Martinez. They stood in comfortable silence, two people who'd survived the same hell and carried the same memories. "Sarah wants you to visit us in San Diego," Martinez said eventually. "Spend a weekend with the family. Let the kids hear more stories about what real service looks like." "I like that," Maya said. "They saved me because of you." Martinez's voice was rough with emotion. "I got to watch my kids grow up, celebrate anniversaries with Sarah, build a life after the uniform. That's because you stayed on that radio while you were bleeding. You stayed alive because you're stubborn and strong. We both did our jobs that day." "Yeah, but your job was harder." Martinez turned to face her. "I've thought about it a lot over the years. I was a shooter doing what I trained for. You were juggling 3 tasks simultaneously in your second language under fire while wounded. That's a different level of operational capability." Maya shrugged. "We all bring different skills to the mission. The team works because everyone contributes what they're best at. And you were the best at keeping us alive." Martinez pulled out his commemorative coin. "I'm going to give this to Rob Jr. when he's older. Let him know what real heroism looks like. Not the movie version, the actual version. Someone doing an impossible job because it needs doing. That's a good lesson for him to learn." They walked back toward the parking area as the sun began its descent. Maya's rental car waited in the visitor lot, ready to take her to the airport for her flight home. But she paused before leaving, looking back at the memorial one more time. The 12 names would always be there, carved in granite, permanent and honored. Now they were accompanied by acknowledgement of the full team that had fought beside them. The story was more complete, more honest, more true to what had actually happened. Her phone buzzed with messages from the ISA Veteran Support Network. Christine Park had helped another former operator get VA benefits approved. David Hassan had successfully advocated for security clearance renewal for a veteran whose classified service had been questioned. The working group's efforts were producing tangible results. Rodriguez had sent an update about the Permanent Recognition Office. They'd processed 93 cases in the past 6 months, helping veterans access benefits, verify employment histories, and gain proper recognition. The office had also begun coordinating with historians to identify operations that could be partially declassified to honor participants. Maya typed responses as she drove toward the airport. The network functioned like a distributed support system, veterans helping veterans navigate challenges that few others understood. What had started as her individual story at Coronado had become a community effort to serve people who'd serve in shadows. At the airport security checkpoint, she placed her carry-on bag on the conveyor belt. The TSA officer noticed her SEAL Team 3 challenge coin attached to her bag zipper. "Thank you for your service," the officer said respectfully. Maya nodded her acknowledgement. 2 years ago, That challenge coin had been evidence in a stolen valor case. Now, it was recognized for what it truly was, a symbol of earned respect and shared sacrifice. On the flight home, Maya reviewed documents for the upcoming quarterly meeting of the JSOC Recognition Working Group. They'd accomplished significant progress, but substantial work remained. Hundreds of veterans still needed support. Dozens of installations required training. Multiple agencies needed coordination. But the systems were in place now. The permanent office was operational. The protocols existed. The training was standardized. The veteran network provided peer support. What had seemed impossible 6 months ago was now routine business. Maya thought about the journey from that first confrontation at the Coronado Gate to the ceremony today. Arrested as a fraud, honored as a guardian. Questioned about her service, now helping establish systems to prevent others from facing similar questioning. The transformation wasn't just personal. It was institutional, cultural, systemic. The military was learning to recognize warriors who'd operated in classified shadows. The process was slow and incomplete, but undeniably moving forward. She pulled out her leather journal, the water-stained cover familiar under her fingers. Inside, the 12 names were still written in her handwriting from years ago. Beside each name, she'd added notes from conversations with their families. The stories were more complete now, enriched by details loved ones had shared. Kyle Davidson's surfing dreams, Marcus Chin's terrible humor, James Sullivan's protective instinct, the others with their own quirks and qualities and humanity. They were more than names on granite or statistics in reports. They were people who'd mattered, who still mattered, who would continue mattering as long as their stories were told. Maya closed the journal and watched clouds pass below the aircraft. Tomorrow she'd return to her civilian work, her consulting clients, her normal life. But part of her would always belong to Helmand Province, to the memorial at Coronado, to the veterans who'd served in invisible roles and were finally being recognized. The promise she'd made 12 years ago had been kept and expanded. The dead were honored. The living were supported. The future was being shaped by lessons learned from hidden histories finally being acknowledged. That was enough. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 12? 1 year after the Coronado incident, Maya stood in the Pentagon briefing room presenting findings to a joint committee of DoD officials. The recognition program had expanded beyond anyone's initial projections. What began as protocols for ISA veterans had evolved into comprehensive reforms addressing classified service across multiple agencies. Colonel Rodriguez sat at the committee table, now promoted to full colonel and leading the Permanent Recognition Office. Beside him were representatives from VA, DoD personnel, and the intelligence community. Maya had become the de facto civilian expert on classified service recognition. Her consulting work now focused almost entirely on helping veterans navigate these systems. We've processed over 400 cases in the past 12 months, Maya explained, displaying statistics on the screen. 78% resulted in successful verification and benefit approval. The remaining 22% involved classification levels requiring additional clearance protocols we're still developing. A VA official raised her hand. Ms. Torres, what's the most common challenge these veterans face? Employment verification, Maya answered immediately. Civilian employers don't understand classified service and often interpret redacted records as suspicious rather than legitimate. We're working with major corporations to educate HR departments about recognition markers. The briefing continued for 90 minutes, covering training expansion, policy refinements, and emerging challenges. The committee asked detailed questions that Maya answered with the precision of someone who'd lived these issues firsthand and spent a year helping others navigate them. After the briefing concluded, Rodriguez walked with Maya through the Pentagon corridors. You become quite the policy expert. Who knew that getting arrested would lead to this? Maya smiled. Life takes unexpected turns. I came to Coronado to honor 12 dead teammates. I'm leaving this briefing having helped establish systems that will serve thousands of veterans. The impact goes beyond veterans, Rodriguez said. Security personnel think differently now. Military historians are reconsidering timelines. Young people like Katie Martinez are asking better questions about who served and how. You change the conversation. They reached the building exit where autumn sunlight streamed through glass doors. Rodriguez handed Maya a folder. The JSOC commander wanted you to have this. It's documentation of your contributions to the recognition program, suitable for framing or including in your professional portfolio. Maya accepted the folder but didn't open it immediately. Colonel, none of this was about recognition for me. It was about making sure other veterans don't face what I faced. I know, which is exactly why you're the right person to lead this work. Rodriguez's expression was sincere. True service isn't about seeking credit. It's about solving problems that need solving. Outside the Pentagon, Maya checked her phone to find messages from the Veteran Support Network. Christine Park had helped another operator access VA mental health services. David Hassan had successfully advocated for a veteran whose security clearance had been questioned due to service record gaps. Lieutenant Chun, now finishing intelligence training, had written asking for advice about her first operational assignment. Maya responded to each message, offering guidance and encouragement. The network had grown to include over 200 veterans, creating the community support system that should have existed from the beginning. Her phone rang with a call from Senior Chief Webb. Ma'am, wanted to give you an update. The Team 3 Heritage display is being replicated at the Naval Special Warfare Command Museum. Your story and the Hellman operation will be part of the permanent public exhibit. That's significant, Maya said, moving from a team space to a command-level museum. The museum director said, your story illustrates important themes about the evolution of special operations and the role of intelligence personnel. It'll help educate the public about aspects of military service they typically don't see. As long as it honors the 12 men who died, I support it. It does, Webb assured her. We made sure of that. That evening, Maya attended a dinner in Arlington with several ISA veterans. The gathering had become monthly tradition, a chance for operators who'd serve in isolation to connect with people who understood their experiences. Tonight's group included 8 veterans spanning different eras and theaters. Over dinner, they shared updates about their advocacy work, their personal lives, and their ongoing adjustment to having their service finally recognized. The conversation flowed between serious policy discussions and the dark humor that bonded combat veterans. Christine Park raised her glass for a toast. To Maya Torres, who turned an arrest into a movement. To all of us, Maya corrected. I was just the person who happened to be in the right place when the system's failures became visible. Everyone here has contributed to fixing those failures. They touched glasses in solidarity. 8 veterans who'd operated in shadows and were now working together to ensure future operators wouldn't face the same invisibility. After dinner, Maya drove to her home, reflecting on the year's developments. The transformation remained almost surreal. 12 months ago, she'd been detained in a holding cell at Coronado. Tonight, she'd briefed Pentagon officials and was recognized as a subject matter expert on classified service recognition. But more importantly, the systems were working. Veterans were getting benefits. Security personnel were making better decisions. Training programs were spreading awareness. Heritage displays were preserving accurate history. The Permanent Recognition Office was institutionalizing reforms that would outlast any individual's involvement. Her laptop showed an email from Katie Martinez. Ms. Torres, I got accepted to Georgetown University for military history. My essay was about how classification creates invisible veterans and the importance of preserving their stories. Thank you for showing me this field exists. Maya typed back her congratulations, feeling pride in Katie's accomplishments. One teenager asking better questions, inspired by stories that had been hidden, now pursuing scholarship that would uncover more hidden histories. The ripple effects continued spreading. Another email came from Captain Brennan. Ma'am, I've been selected to present at the Joint Security Training Conference about recognizing classified personnel. They want me to use the Coronado incident as a case study. I wanted your permission before discussing it publicly. Maya responded, you have my full permission. Use the story to help others learn. That's what it's for. She pulled out the commemorative coin from her desk drawer, that constant symbol of promises kept and missions accomplished. The weight still felt right, solid and meaningful. Guardian. She'd been a guardian for SEAL team members in Helmand Province. She'd become a guardian for veterans navigating recognition challenges. Both roles honored the same core principle of protecting those who needed protection. Her journal sat beside the coin, water stains on the leather cover faded, but still visible. Inside were the 12 names, now accompanied by detailed notes from family conversations, memorial services, and ongoing correspondence. The stories were complete in ways they hadn't been a year ago, enriched by details that filled gaps and added depth. Kyle Davidson's daughter was learning to surf, fulfilling her father's dream vicariously. Marcus Chin's parents had established a scholarship for military linguists in their son's memory. James Sullivan's brother had named his youngest child James after his fallen uncle. The dead were remembered. The living carried on. Life continued in the complicated, messy, beautiful way always did after loss. Maya thought about the question David Hassan had asked months ago at Fort Bragg. Do you regret the invisibility, the sacrifices, the lack of recognition? Her answer remained the same. She regretted the losses, but not the service. The work had mattered. The missions had succeeded more often than they'd failed. The intelligence provided had saved lives. And now, finally, that work was being acknowledged within appropriate constraints. Not publicized in ways that compromised security, but recognized by the communities and institutions that needed to know. That balance felt right. Her phone showed one final message before she closed her laptop for the night. Colonel Rodriguez with a brief update. The JSOC commander approved funding for 3 additional staff positions in the Permanent Recognition Office. The program is being institutionalized at the highest levels. Your work made this possible. Maya responded simply. Our work. All of us together. She walked to her window, overlooking the quiet suburban street. Neighbors returned from work. Children played in yards. Dogs barked. Life's ordinary rhythms continued uninterrupted by the extraordinary efforts happening in Pentagon briefing rooms and VA offices and military heritage displays. That was exactly as it should be. The whole point of military service was protecting these ordinary, peaceful moments. The classification existed to preserve operational security. The recognition reforms ensured those who'd served in shadows received appropriate honor. All of it worked together to maintain the balance between security and acknowledgement. Maya thought about what she'd tell her younger self sitting in that holding cell at Coronado 12 months ago. That the arrest would lead to systemic change. That speaking at the memorial would inspire education efforts. That one person's story could catalyze reforms benefiting hundreds of others. But she also knew her younger self wouldn't have cared about those outcomes in that moment. In the holding cell, all that mattered was honoring 12 men who died in Helmand Province. Everything else was secondary. The memorial service had fulfilled that promise. Everything after was bonus, unexpected developments that proved individual actions could reshape institutional systems when the timing was right and the cause was just. Maya pulled out her phone one more time and opened a group message to the iSave Veteran Network. 1 year ago today, I was arrested at Coronado for wearing a SEAL Trident I'd earned. Tonight, I briefed Pentagon officials on recognition reforms that are helping hundreds of veterans. This transformation happened because all of you stepped forward to share your stories and work for change. Thank you for your courage and your service. Responses flooded in immediately. Veterans offering their own thanks, sharing updates on our progress, expressing gratitude for the community that had formed. The network hummed with life and purpose and mutual support. This was the real victory, not the policies or the protocols or the institutional reforms, though those mattered. The real victory was veterans finding each other, supporting each other, ensuring no one faced these challenges alone anymore. Maya closed her laptop and sat in the quiet of her home. Tomorrow she'd continue the advocacy work, helping more veterans navigate recognition challenges. Next week, she'd present at another conference about classified service. Next month, she'd attend the annual Helmand Province Memorial at Coronado, now an established tradition she'd never miss. But tonight, she simply sat with the knowledge that promises had been kept, missions had been accomplished, and invisible service was finally being honored appropriately. The 12 names on the Coronado Memorial were remembered fully and accurately. The veterans who'd served in classified shadows had a support system and recognition protocols. The systems were in place to prevent future veterans from facing what her generation had endured. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Maya touched the challenge coin one final time, feeling its familiar weight. Then she placed it back in the drawer beside her journal and prepared for sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to serve. But tonight, she could rest knowing she'd fulfilled every promise she'd made and helped create systems that would serve long after her individual involvement ended. The Guardian's work was complete. The legacy was secured. The story had been told and would continue being told in heritage displays and training programs and conversations between veterans who finally had permission to acknowledge what they'd done. 12 names on granite. Hundreds of veterans supported. Thousands of future operators who would benefit from reforms implemented today. One arrest that became a catalyst for institutional change. Maya Torres closed her eyes and slept peacefully, surrounded by the quiet, ordinary life she and countless others had fought to preserve.